Sonic has always been a cherished franchise to me. The stories they tell have stuck with me time and time again. From Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, to Sonic Colors, Unleashed, hell, even Generations. We all know that Sonic in the past couple of years had had a rough time. Somewhere along the way, Sega and Sonic Team became complacent in playing it safe and abandoning all the parts of Sonic stories that made them great. But with the introduction of Sonic Frontiers, some fate has been brought back to Sonic. So without further ado, let us review Sonic Frontiers. Just a quick note, the story tends to jump around a lot, and I like to talk about things chronologically, so we may jump around a bit. Our adventure begins with Eggman inspecting an ancient object in Angel Island Zone. He inserts a strange device that turns out to be a virus of sorts, but things turn ugly as he's sucked into the ancient object by the very program he created, for some reason. We'll find out later. We then switch to Sonic flying to a new island, Starfall Islands, with Tails and Amy. The crew's back together, baby. They're on a hunt for the Chaos Emeralds and track them down to these islands. Unfortunately, they get caught in some atmospheric charge that sends them flying into a portal. Sonic is then transported into cyberspace, and after beating it, awakens on the strange island. A strange voice calls to him and tells him that he's the key to something. The voice tells him to find the Chaos Emeralds and destroy the Titans to break down the barrier between dimensions. Wow, we are already getting there, huh? Just at his side is strange white-haired girl, who we'll know better later on. After beating some bosses and collecting some emeralds, we meet back with Eggman trapped in some sort of digital dimension. We cut quickly back to Sonic saving Amy, but she's not very physical. That weird girl seems to be commanding the Titans that we heard about earlier, telling it to stay down solely to mock Sonic. Seriously, what the fuck? Despite her frightening attitude, Sonic is unfazed, because of course he is. Very quickly we see that Sonic can't beat these Titan things as he gets absolutely destroyed by one. He's gonna need the power of the Chaos Emeralds to stand a chance against those. Between major cutscenes in the story, we get to see Sonic's friends interact with Coco's, and they help flesh out the backstory for the islands we're trapped in. Amy's Coco wants to see its lover, but can't find him. Sonic helps out, the ice cream swirl looking ass girl shows up to be a dick for 5 minutes and then fucks off. Despite Sonic wanting to help her, this robo bitch won't deal. Back to Eggman now, he's still trying to escape cyberspace and tells Chaos Swirl to make it her top priority. However, she seems quite reluctant. Now, back to Amy's ripoff Koroks. Sonic gets two lovers back together and they fucking die. Through this cutscene, we see what seems to be a battlefield of sorts. Seems like this place has more history behind it than initially thought. Now that Sonic is done with Amy's Coco story, he faces off the Titan. With the power of the Chaos Emerald, he beats it down. The voice calls out again, revealing the location of the next Titan, so Sonic takes off to meet it. Just to make things harder though, as soon as Sonic arrives, he loses all the emeralds to lasers in disguise, because of course he does. From here on out, the story is pretty formulaic. Free friends, find emeralds, help Cocos beat Titans. So instead of going into ungodly excruciating detail for every single one of these islands, I'll just skim around. Knuckles' island revolves around soldier Cocos who need to perform their duty to be at peace. Sonic helps them, and we get another scene of the past which practically proves this place was part of a war at one point in time. Meanwhile, in cyberspace, Eggman and Camera Shutter Girl are talking, with the girl wanting to see her brother robots back home. Sonic beats the island's Titan and flies up to the next island. Sonic then arrives at Tails' island, and when saving Tails, Sonic suffers heavily from cyber cancer. But there's no time to get down from that, he needs to beat the Titans after all. Albino-haired girl notices Sonic's unwillingness to give up and is promptly confused. In a sudden flashback, we see a bunch of lasers shooting at something in the sky. However, these lasers fail and whatever it is it was aiming for, fires back, making a giant crater in the middle of the island. Ice Cream Girl instant transmissions in at one point to question Tails on whether he thinks Sonic can win against the Titans. Tails obviously thinks he can win, and she sort of agrees, but still thinks it's a hopeless cause. Seriously, this bitch has never seen Archie Sonic. Motherfucker literally kills gods for breakfast. This ain't shit. She questions Sonic on his morals and continues to be as cryptic and mocking as she was before. In the background, Eggman is still trying to leave this fucking place with White Woman deciding the only way to escape is to work with Sonic. Something he's not willing to do. His mind will change soon, however. Also, Tails has a mental crisis about being useless, and let's be honest here, he fucking is, man. He's done jack shit for 12 games straight now. Eventually, Sonic helps Tails' Coco die and has a heartfelt conversation with Tails. One Sage cries over, being jealous that Sonic has a family born of love. This scene is played like a long overdue change in personality for Sage, but it isn't. It's a little too rushed for that. Regardless, it is emotional, and she opens up to Sonic and Co. just a little. After 50 hours of 2D sections, Sonic plays a shitty game of pinball and fights the island's Titan. Sonic cuts the fucker in half like a goddamn anime protagonist, and it's pretty epic. I am so fucking gonna die. Sonic flies to the next island, which is an over-glorified cutscene era, by the way, and the voice calls out to him once more. Sonic, who looks noticeably more tired, begins breaking the barrier between dimensions. Probably not a good thing if Kirby's taught me anything. A flashback plays of a planet being destroyed and Sonic limps around as Sage questions how the fuck he's still moving. Sonic breaks down more barriers, seeing more of the ancients pass, and it turns out they fled from their planet to Earth. The Chaos Emeralds were apparently reacting to a power source on Earth. Also, yes, the Chaos Emeralds are for space now. That's just a thing now. This source turns out to be the Master Emerald, which has me questioning, what the fuck is the Master Emerald? Does it come from space too? Who knows, maybe we'll see that sometime later. The ancients make a home for themselves on Earth, putting their history into cyberspace and try to live a relatively normal life. Unfortunately, the giant space god of death isn't gonna let that happen. The final cutscene shows the ancients getting ready to face off against the space god of death with giant Gundam robots. Hell yeah! The ancients head into battle and lose immediately to purple smoke. Okay. That's one way to go, I guess. Sonic wakes up and is fully cyber-cucked, unable to handle the blackface. It's literally blackface. Everyone surrounds him, and the only option to save Sonic is to do whatever this is. I'm gonna be honest, I don't fully understand what happens here. Despite Eggman's happiness to have finally ended Sonic, Sage is not, because the barrier between dimensions has finally been broken and now the voice can escape and void the universe. Sage comments on how everything is hopeless and Sonic's friends help Sonic revert back to his normal self. Now back on his feet, there's no time to spare. With the world at stake, Sage once again makes the offer to save the world with Sonic, and Eggman, with no other options, finally caves in. Now for the final island, baby! This time, Sonic converses directly with Sage. Sage reveals she was created by Eggman, her mission to protect Eggman, how she trapped Sonic's friends, and how she can't control the final Titan, which leaves the disposal of it up to Sonic. Sage even reveals some things about the ancients and how they had a hard time adapting to the world. This is the world where we learn her name is Sage, by the way. After getting the last of the emeralds, Sonic, with the help of Eggman once more, goes supersonic and flies off to face the final Titan. Sonic obviously succeeds and heads off to space to fight the end. Together, Sonic and Sage deal massive damage to the end, and in a last-ditch effort to save Sonic, Sage sacrifices herself, telling him to look after her father. Man, that's kinda sad. That's 2 people who've died in space now, by the way. Sonic's friends are freed, Eggman suffers the loss of a child! All is right in the world and credits ensue. Ha! Gotcha! Eggman does manage to salvage Sage. Maybe, who knows, I don't. Now I know that was a lot to take in, especially considering how short these videos usually are. But that was the story of Sonic Frontiers. Sort of. All in all, it has some of the best writing in a long while. The stakes are properly set up, the mystery is intriguing, and the characters are in character, which is euphoric after years of Sonic games failing to do these characters justice. Sonic feels like a mature version of his SA2 self, cocky but willing to slow down every now and again for others and when it's appropriate. Amy is kind and isn't manic for Sonic 24/7. She's willing to do anything to help out those she thinks needs it, like the Coco. Tails is smart and not a cowardly little baby like in Forces. They even reference past games and how Tails acted in them, even saying he was inconsistent. The story serves to do Tails justice by showing that while yes, he was off character in those games, he's not going to be so anymore. Knuckles isn't an idiot or a fucking war general, thank God. He even has a small rivalry with Sonic, which is nice to see because he was originally meant to be a rival to Sonic. Sage is interesting. She's built to be a calculating machine, but is perceptible to outside influences. She grows to want a family like Sonic has, with friends and rivals who believe in themselves and each other. She grows attached to them while watching from a distance, and is shown to be far more human than anything Eggman has created before. Speaking of Eggman, Sage and him have sort of a father-daughter relationship in this game. Eggman, for as cold-hearted as he can be, lets himself be swayed by Sage, and Sage sees him as her father, willing to protect him at all costs. And when that cost is getting Sonic and Eggman to work together, Sage manages to convince him to take that cost. While it may be likely that he would have done so otherwise out of cowardice or desperation, it is nice to see it done out of some sort of love and attachment. This dynamic is by far the best part of the game. Eggman, unlike all other Sonic characters, never really develops or has arcs of his own. The only time I can remember something like this happening was at the end of Adventure 2, and that was kind of an emotional moment all of his own. And I love the way they did it for this game. While I do consider it to be somewhat rushed and off-pace, mainly because the cutscenes are determined by the player rather than the game, it still works. I love seeing this more caring side to Eggman be shown off, even if it's just this once. It gives me genuine hope that these characters will be interesting again. I want to see these characters do more, and want to see them change and grow. I genuinely had a great time with the characters here and want to see them again, which isn't something I can say for a game like Forces or Generations. It makes me sort of feel like how I did at the end of Sonic Adventure 2, hopeful for the future. And I know I didn't mention the Ancients a lot in this, and that's because they, to me at least, are the least interesting part about this game. They're fine for the most part. I don't hate them or anything, I just don't care about them. I can't say the same about the end, however. It's a metaphor for, well, the end. And while that's cool and all, I really would have preferred something more, how do I put this, real? I don't know if you noticed it, but I'm not much of a thinker. I go for the motions when playing games, and I really put a lot of effort into understanding every minute detail when playing. I can do so in retrospect, but I don't do so much in the moment. And in the moment I was fighting the end, I wasn't thinking, man, this game has some really rockin' metaphors that I should be thinking deeply about. I instead think, what the fuck, I'm fighting the moon? Why? How the fuck did the Ancients lose to a moon? Which is heavily impacted how I saw the ending. That and the battle itself also didn't help this matter, but we'll talk about that in the gameplay section. Despite this, however, I enjoyed everything else about the end. Its mysterious and ominous nature, its presence being something that could only ever be felt and never seen. The one other gripe I have that I might as well mention is that the end is built up to be a devastating threat, but it's only ever built up by other characters saying how it's a big threat, and us seeing brief glimpses of it devastating the Ancients. I wish this threat could have been built up a little bit more to convey how it's bigger than anything Sonic has handled before, because in all honesty, it's no bigger a threat than the Space Arc Cannon, or the Time Eater, or Metal Sonic Neo. All things Sonic has conquered before. This is a minor nitpick though, nothing that absolutely ruins the game. No, the gameplay does that just fine on its own, thank you very much. Speaking of which, why don't we move on to the graphics? This section should be relatively short as I don't have much to speak on in the way of graphics. For the most part, the game looks nice. I should mention that I recorded the entire playthrough on the wrong resolution, which is why things look so blurry in a lot of the shots. I blame the game for not upping the resolution automatically like literally every other game does, but whatever. Visually, this game looks fine. My main problem isn't the quality of the visuals, it's the style of the visuals. The world looks so basic. It lacks any form of Sonic charm or style in it, which is absolutely a shame because I absolutely adore the style of old school Sonic games. It felt so energetic and alive. The world could have realistic streets and also Pumpkin Hill. A world that's just begging to be explored with vastly unique and intriguing areas, like mystical temples and valleys in the sky, or magical parks. I look at those games and I feel like there's an entire world just waiting for me. I look at Sonic Frontiers and I think, okay, whose shitty Unity game is this? And while I can understand having a more grounded world is necessary for a more grounded story, I don't believe this level of realism to be excusable. Sonic Adventure 2 had a very grounded world, but still managed to have Sonic style that made every moment feel like a, well, adventure. And while this game looks nice, I don't feel that anywhere. The world looks so bland and generic, I find it hard to want to explore every inch of it. I want to emphasize, again, that I do not think Sonic Frontiers looks bad. I think it lacks charm or style. The most you'll get out of it is the cyberspace stages that have the most boring and generic fucking level designs you've seen 100 times before, but it's something, I guess. Well, I'd love to say that's the last of my complaints about the game. That'd be a lie. Because now we're going to go into what might be my most controversial segment yet. The game music! This should also be a relatively short segment because, unlike a lot of other Sonic games, the music in this one is atmospheric for the most part. I understand fully that for a game like Sonic Frontiers, having Adventure Over 6 or Unleashed music blaring 24/7 would be obnoxious, and so atmospheric music is ideal for this sort of game. It's very soft and unintrusive, perfect for exploring a grand open space. It fits well with the world Sonic Frontiers lays out, and in that regard, it's fine. I'm not a fan of it, but I'm not annoyed by it. In fact, I don't have any major problems with any of the songs in this game uses. Most of the songs are fitting and none really stand out much to me. Cyberspace stages have more energetic music, but it's mainly techno music with synthesized vocals and instruments. Some of it is actually pretty fun to listen to, but mainly because of the lyrics. It's a shame that some of the songs in cyberspace are really good because it's cyberspace and everything else about it is utter ass. But there is one part where the music hits a little harder. I'm talking about when nobody in the Sonic community could shut up about for months when they first heard it. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Titans music, Undefeatable. At first, I honestly wasn't the biggest fan of the song. I'm not a heavy metalcore or rock or fan or whatever this genre of music is, but after a few listens, it's grown on me. I still don't care much for the screaming. I'd rather the singer just sing than attempt to break my eardrums, but this is acceptable. So yeah, nice job, Sega. Is nice. Much thanks, Sega team. Please give me your IP address now. So to put it plainly, at worst the music is unintrusive, and at best it's a banger. Undefeatable is now up there to me as an all-time classic Sonic song for me. I do adore it so, but I don't adore one thing. I've been putting it off for too long. It's time to talk about the gameplay. Oh boy. Mamma mia, now this might be the most controversial segment of this review. I'm not the biggest fan about the gameplay. The game centers around exploring the islands to find memory tokens for characters to progress the story and gather Chaos Emerald vault keys to nab Chaos Emeralds. Use the emeralds to beat the Titan, rinse and repeat 5 times, and boom, you beat the game. This loop is not what I take issue with. It's the decisions made around this loop that make me not enjoy it as much as I otherwise would. Let's start with my biggest issue, the combat. The combat in this game is simple, and easy to use and master. It doesn't take a lot of thought to maximize the damage you deal to an enemy. The enemies themselves don't take much thought to fight off either, at least the ground troops. Occasionally you'll fight bigger baddies that do offer more of a challenge, and those I do enjoy. Some even give you portal gears or emerald vault keys which give incentive to fight them. But the regular Joes? Not even remotely. Beating them often gives you little to nothing in terms of rewards. The most you get is some buffs and that's about it. Sure, you can get experience for fighting them, but that goes true with every enemy. Fighting them is more of an annoyance than anything. Oftentimes I ignore combat because of how pointless it becomes later on once you have all the abilities unlocked. Everything they can reward you with can be gotten by exploring the island instead. As if that weren't bad enough, a single hit from any of these bastards can completely get rid of your supercharged state, making it a pain to do the far more fun thing of exploring. And while I can appreciate the attempt at a more complex fighting system, I don't think it necessarily fits Sonic. Sure, they look flashy and most are well animated, but they don't flow well and most of them don't feel like Sonic moves. It's a shame because there's so many ways you could have implemented Sonic's old moveset to better suit combat, like the lightspeed dash targeting all enemies in a certain range, or the spin dash being a move that takes a while to charge up but can inflict heavy damage, or the bounce bracelet being used to pummel blocking enemies. I feel like they missed so many opportunities with the combat and made it overly generic and boring. Once again, the foundation is fine, but it's missing that Sonic style. Ultimately, the combat becomes unnecessary at best and annoying at worst. And that's not bringing up the parry move, which, well, at the time of recording, I wasn't even aware you can merely hold down to deflect all damage. Now for the cyberspace stages. The physics are bad, clunky, unfun, and annoying. Sonic feels like a tank, and it makes one-screen stages frustrating to play. It makes Sonic Generation stages unfun to play. That is an accomplishment if I've ever seen one. My next issue comes with the minigames. Mainly, Pinball and Space Invaders. These minigames make what would otherwise be a fun play for this game into a pace-breaking nightmare. I like Sonic because of how fast I beat the game is entirely dependent on how much effort I put into every action, how skillful I am at playing the levels, how hard I try, and how much I practice. I don't like it when those skills become useless because the game decided that it wanted more variety. Pinball is luck-based by nature, and I will not listen to anyone that says otherwise. The goal limit is annoyingly high, even with the red rings giving you the same amount of points, and the general gameplay of it is not enjoyable and frustrating. And Space Invaders is even worse. I will admit I'm not the best with bullet hell games or timing games, but this is ridiculous. This minigame breaks everything I love about Sonic. It actively makes me not want to revisit this game. This is by far the most baffling decision in the entire game. And the person who decided the final boss should be an overly long, drawn-out game of Galaga ought to off themselves. Let me say this. While it is true that Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 changed the gameplay at the final level to more than one, you could still beat it quicker with skill and practice. You could get better at dodging lasers and speeding through space. You cannot speed up this final boss. It is entirely on rails, and I hate that. This makes me angry because they had an entire combat system that they could have used but decided to use the worst minigame instead. Well, I did just harp on I didn't enjoy the combat just a minute ago. I do enjoy it a lot more than Galaga ripoff over here. I enjoyed the spectacle of watching Sonic pull off these crazy moves, even if they could have used more of Sonic's regular moves in them. And using them in the Titans fights are genuinely fun, even if I was getting my ass beat half the time. I wish we got a proper fight rather than this. I know you can skip it by going on easy mode, and I did, unintentionally, but still. I wanted a better final boss fight. I wanted a fight that showed me how cool Sonic was and made me feel like I was overcoming insurmountable odds. Instead, I got a lazy bullet hell that made me feel nothing but anger, and left my ending of the game bittersweet. When I was first writing this video, I originally planned to be a lot more critical of it. I would complain about how SA 1 and 2 did everything this game did so much better, but upon looking back at it, that's not true. I see a game that has a solid foundation, that likes a lot of what made the older game so much fun to play. With the right tools and a dedicated team to doing so, the next Sonic game could perfect this foundation and bring Sonic back his style. And while I have a lot of problems with the game, I don't in any way think it's terrible or unplayable. I think quite the opposite, in fact. It's one of the most accessible Sonic games made yet. Anyone could pick this up and have a fun time with it. I know I left a lot of things out of this review: Big's fishing minigame, the second side fight, some story details and gameplay aspects, but I don't intend for this to be a full-on retrospective and analysis of Sonic Frontiers. Ultimately, Sonic Frontiers is a well-made and solid game. While I enjoyed it a lot, I still wait for a game that can rival Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great day. And I'll see you guys in the next adventure, whatever that may be.